meeting for August 13, 2018, the time being 7:03. Ms. Iker, will you please take roll call?
Mayor Christy Melendez,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ken Bennett,
Here.
Miles Baker,
Here.
Barry Wilson,
Here.
Paul Rennemeyer,
Here.
Tom Jones,
Here.
David Sislowski.
Here.
Mr. Sislowski, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 this evening is review of agenda by the board and addition of items of new business to the agenda for consideration by the board. Are there any items for consideration? Seeing none, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Mr. Was that you, Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
All in favor, vote yes. Opposed, no. And the agenda is approved unanimously as presented. Moving on to item 4. This evening, our Chief Klemick, is going to be presenting life-saving awards.
Yeah.
Chief.
Mayor and board members, thank you for allowing me to do this here tonight. We oftentimes have a great tragedy in our business, and every now and then there's some great successes. And on December 29th of 2017, we had one of those. What started out to be a very trying time actually turned out with a positive outcome. And so as a result of that, I'd like to present some awards to some people who are involved in it. These weren't all the people involved with it, but these are 3 of the people I think were very important to our department and to the outcome of this event. On December 29th, sorry, Jared Paul, you want to sit up here, Jared? Officer Paul responded to a residence for a call of a medical call with an unconscious resident. When he arrived on scene, he assisted paramedics and EMTs with CPR and life-saving measures. They were able to revive the person, and she was transported to the hospital and had a full recovery. Jared's efforts aren't out of the norm for him. He's a superb officer and a very caring and diligent person. So with that, I'd like to present to Officer Jared Paul in the gratitude for your quick thinking and courage to take action in saving the life of another on December 29th, 2017. Wayne Plaschetti is the husband of Lori Plaschetti. Lori was the unfortunate person to have the medical episode that required the CPR. Wayne responded home when his daughter called him and started CPR immediately, and really was the first line of saving Lori. His efforts really speak highly of his character. It takes quite a bit to remain calm in those types of stressful situations. So with that, Wayne Plaschetti, in gratitude for your quick thinking and courage to take action in saving the life of another person on December 29th, 2017. Sadie, would you and Lori, don't cry because on December 29th, Sadie was home with her mother, and Lori had been complaining all day of some neck pain, and at one point while she was doing laundry, started to faint, and as I'm told, she called out to Sadie to catch her, and she fell to the floor, and Sadie, thinking quickly, contacted her dad, who responded home and started CPR, but Sadie stayed calm. She put the animals away so that when the paramedics arrived, it would be a less chaotic scene. Sadie is truly a hero. It takes a lot for a 10-year-old at the time to remain calm and to do what she did. So, Sadie, you are my hero. Presented Sadie Blatchley in gratitude for your quick thinking and courage to take action in saving the life of another on December 29, 2017. Congratulations. I'm not going to ask you to say anything to the board, but I'd like to have a picture of you and your reason. Thank you so much.
I would ask we give them all a
Thank you, board members.
Well, thank you. So often when we have our chief of police come before us, he doesn't, is not able to always provide such good, positive news. But thank you for sharing this tonight, and we're so happy that for your family that everything turned out on a positive note for you. And God bless you all. Thank you. Yes. Moving on to item 5, board liaison reports. Town Board Member Baker, Tree Board, Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you. That's not easy to follow, but I have no update on the tree board, and I was unable to attend Wednesday's historic preservation. They did a tour of some historic buildings, and I'm disappointed I didn't get to see that, but I couldn't make it. I had previous plans. No updates today.
Okay. Town Board Member Wilson, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Board, Poudre River Trail Corridor Board.
On the Parks and Rec and Culture, we are moving forward with Village East Park. That has gone out to bid, so that should be happening sooner rather than later. And the big news is Main Park is still on schedule, hopefully to be ready before the Harvest Festival with the new playground equipment. With the Poudre River Trail Corridor, a couple things. There's a section of the trail that's west of Eastman Park, but in the Randance development there was a temporary trail going around some oil and gas operations, and that has been paved and being restored. And if weather permits, that should be opening on Friday, August 17th. I've seen a lot on social media, people asking questions about that. And then there's an upcoming closure that's going to be about 3 miles east of Highway 257. That'll be after Labor Day, and it'll be closed for approximately 53 days for some repairs and construction. And that will be communicated, and there'll be trail markers and everything else for that, but it'll be closed from Labor Day through about mid-November. And then the last thing for the trail would be the party on the Poudre is coming up on Wednesday, September 12th, and tickets are on sale.
Okay. Town Board Member, or Mayor Pro Tem Bennett, Water and Sewer Board, and filling in for me in my absence, North Front Range MPO.
Okay. Water and Sewer Board met last Wednesday. They did a review and update on the North Sewer Extension Project. The North Front Range Metropolitan Organization met on August 2nd. And 3 key things to note. One, really significant, a team of members from the MPO worked extensively with CDOT to get approval for some additional projects in sections 7 and 8 on I-25. And so this is if and when funds are available. This approval is to prepare the footprints to accommodate a 3rd general purpose lane in each direction. So eventually we'll be talking about 6 general purpose lanes and 2 managed lanes, 8 lanes. So it's really significant to get on the approved list for CDOT if and when funding is available in the future. Second thing, we spent a lot of time talking about one of the tax initiatives for this upcoming ballot possibility, Initiative 153. There's a lot of ifs. If it makes the ballot, if it passes, and if over the next couple of decades recessions are not too deep, the local sharing portion of that to Windsor would be approximately $23 million over the next 20 years. So again, there's a lot of ifs in that. Larimer County, approximately $183 million. Weld County, approximately $222 million over the next 20 years. I should point out that the next meeting is September 6th in LaSalle, and they're going to be comparing Initiative 153 and the other tax initiative or other bonding initiative 167. And again, we don't know at this point if either of those are on the ballot. Petitions were turned in last Friday, I believe, or last week, and so the state hasn't verified those yet. The third thing I'll share with you is what CDOT calls Road X. Autonomous vehicles are coming faster than I realized. We were at the meeting up at CDOT. Someone's attended that session on what's happening around the country with autonomous vehicles. CDOT is already doing R&D preparing for that. They have a lot of projects they're doing right now. I'll just give you two examples. One is called Smart Pavement. They're looking at a section that's kind of in the mountain area where there's a lot of accidents. Build sensors into the pavement that will know the location of a car, and when there's a rollover on this particular section, they have a lot of problems. If there's a rollover or a car goes off the road will call 911 and give exact location. Another project they're working on is going to be, I believe, an experiment down around DIA. It's called Smart Powered Lanes. One of the big problems with autonomous vehicles is mostly electric. Batteries are very large, so that makes it expensive, and you don't have a great range. They're looking at creating a paved lane or a smart powered lane that as you drive on it, charges the car, the vehicle, which means the batteries are significantly smaller, less expensive, increases the range. So there's some really interesting things happening in preparing for the future there. So that was Metro.
Okay.
Okay.
Town Board Member Rennemeyer, Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber of Commerce met last Wednesday for a normal, regularly scheduled monthly board meeting. Other than normal board business, the Chamber of Commerce Board welcomed the new town manager to Mr. Shane Hill, for those at home, to sit in on our regularly scheduled meeting. And in addition to getting to know him, and he got to explain a lot of the different initiatives and projects that the town has. We also covered the new teachers breakfast, which is next week on the 22nd for all the new teachers in Weld RE4. That's at Severance Middle School. That is a ticketed event. Tickets need to be purchased, or sponsorships are available for that event. But other than that, those were the points of highlight.
Okay. Town Board Member Jones, Windsor Housing Authority, Great Western Trail Authority.
No report on the Great Western Trail Authority. There is a Housing Authority meeting next Tuesday. And, nothing new to report from them either.
Okay. Town Board Member Zazlowski, Clearview Library Board and Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. On the Planning Commission, I was unable to attend last Wednesday's meeting, so I have nothing to report on that. The Clearview Library Board, I did attend their normally scheduled board meeting, and the primary topic of that was to go over the audited financials for 2017. The auditor did issue a clean opinion with respect to those financials, and everything's in good stead, and the financials are posted on the library's website if anyone would want to look through those. They did hold a special meeting, again, on Monday, I believe. I was unable to attend last week, at the end of last week rather, and the board did vote to go forward with a mill levy proposed initiative on the ballot for this November. They are looking at moving forward with construction of the new $23 million library. That would be asking for a 2.585 mill levy increase on the November ballot. And of course, that would need to be approved by the citizens. So we can anticipate seeing a lot about that in the coming months.
Okay.
That's it, thank you.
Okay. Item 6 then, moving on, is to public invited to be heard. Did we have anybody who signed up?
No.
Okay. So we don't have anybody this evening under that. agenda items, so we'll move on to item B, the consent calendar. There are 5 items this evening or 6 items this evening, excuse me, on the consent calendar. And I would seek a motion for approval.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion on the floor for Mr. Rettermeyer with a second from Dr. Jones. All in favor, vote yes, opposed no. Consent calendar is approved as presented unanimously. Moving on to item C, board action. First item this evening is a site plan presentation for Eagle Crossing subdivision, 4th filing, Lot 2, Eagle Crossing Fossil Ridge Storage, Eagle Crossing Development, Inc., owner, Brian Williamson, TST Consulting Engineers Incorporated, the applicant, Morgan Kidder, Journey Homes, authorized representative. Ms. Berry will give presentation.
Yes, thank you. Again, this is a site plan presentation for Eagle Crossing subdivision, 4th filing for the Fossil Ridge. Actually, it's the Eagle Crossing self-storage. This is a qualified commercial site plan. It's reviewed with accordance with Article 9 of Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code. The site is located in the Eagle Crossing subdivision. It'll be where, just south of where Steeplechase Drive will be constructed. It will be at the southeast corner of its intersection with Ward Avenue. It is zoned limited industrial, and it's surrounded by limited industrial to the east and north and south, except for to the northwest, where it's multifamily residential. The site is just under 6 acres. It's about 23% landscaped. The structure itself, total, would be about 96,000 square feet. That includes the storage areas and then also the office. The storage areas themselves are about 11 feet tall. The office is slightly taller, it's 15 feet. The storage units will be surrounding the area so that you will not see anything inside. That will limit views of the doors and garage doors and storage areas so from the outside. The access is off of Steeplechase Drive. There are parking spaces, about 7, and here is the landscape plan. This is the landscape plan that was in your packet. I wanted to say that since then we have an updated landscape plan that I'll show you. What we had asked for was additional landscaping in the northeast corner and also some additional landscaping in the southwest corner. And they've come back with a new drawings showing those changes that have been made. This is made to be complementary to these multifamily that are across the street. So they are using the same color palette and materials. The stone and the lap siding and the trim will be the lighter colors. And this is an example of the office here. And then the typical exterior walls of the storage units. And this was one thing that was brought up at the Planning Commission meeting, was some distinction of what sides would have the detail, which is this feature that's a vertical element that helps break up the wall. There is an agreement with once was called the Fossil Ridge subdivision, it's turned into the Eagle Crossing subdivision, but that said that any facades that had greater than 50 feet would be broken up with some kind of elements to help with the massing and the scale of the project. So this is what's happening on the facades that are facing the street, Steeplechase and Ward Avenue, and also on the west, or the east side, which will eventually be developed to the east, but right now it's vacant and it is viewable from Highlands Meadows Parkway, so that'll be included. And it also includes examples of the gates and some fencing that will also be on the project. So this is a site plan review. If you do have any questions, please let me know. The applicant's representative is also here if there's any questions that I can't answer.
So the entrance is on the north side?
That is correct.
And I can't, what's the street that's?
Steeplechase?
That's, okay.
Steeplechase will be extended along there.
Okay. Other questions? Mr. Baker?
Yeah, there's no fencing, or very little. The buildings are actually the exterior of the.
That is correct. There are some gaps in some areas in the corners that will have the fencing, and then also the gate itself in the front will be the black wrought iron.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, if not,
Great.
thank you. And we'll move on to the second site plan we're going to be looking at this evening is a site plan presentation for Windsor Commons subdivision, first filing Lot 4, Joel Walters, Budget Blinds, the applicant. David Stranathan, Freeman Architects is the applicant's representative. Mr. Hornbeck's going to give presentation. Mr. Hornbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Town Board. This site plan has been reviewed in accordance with Article 9, Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code. The site is located on Automation Drive to the northeast of the intersection of State Highway 257 and Eastman Park Drive. Property is zoned general commercial. The subject proposal is a development of 0.9 acres and a approximately 14,000 square foot building. This area was previously site planned, and there's a parking lot that's been constructed on the site, but none of the buildings were ever constructed. So they are working kind of within a constrained, and I should also add there are multiple lots on that subdivides the parking lot. So the little bit darker shading is their property. So it is kind of a constrained site. So that is why they are having an 11% landscaped area, which is lower than what we typically see. But there will be additional landscaping should these other lots develop. There are 53 parking stalls. The landscaping plan itself, you can see some trees and shrubs in the parking lot and along Automation Drive. The building is a multi-tenant building with a stucco and stone building facade on the three sides that are higher visibility. The north side, which faces the self-storage facility, is predominantly a metal finish. It's a 22-foot tall building height. And as you're aware, this site plan presentation is for informational purposes. Should you have any comments, please direct those to staff at this time. And I do want to note the applicant is present should you have any questions for them. That's all.
Are there any questions? Mr. Judge.
Now, this doesn't meet the minimum landscaping requirement, is that correct?
Correct. If it were a new site, it would be required to meet the 15% minimum. Since it's already a platted lot, and they're working within that existing footprint, staff is inclined to approve what's proposed.
Okay, so they didn't have to apply for a variance or?
Not in this case, since there is the existing site plan and parking lot already installed.
Okay.
Any additional questions? What percentage of the building is the applicant going to occupy? Obviously not the entire or all of it?
Not exactly sure. I'm sure he
Okay.
could address that.
Just curious. Oh, can you come forward just for our folks at home and state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Joel Walters. My address is 417 Walnut Street. We're planning on occupying about 3,000 square feet and then leasing out the rest.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 3, ordinance number 2018-1565, an ordinance amending section 17-8-30 and 17-8-20 of the Windsor Municipal Code regarding proposed administrative site plan review and procedure. This is second reading. It will take a supermajority is required to pass and consider legislative action. Ms. Berry.
Great, thank you. Again, second reading of ordinance 2018-1565 in regard to administrative site plans and site plan review procedures. This again affects the qualified commercial industrial site plans and also the administrative site plans, which meet certain criteria outlined by the code. The current process is to take the site plans and present them to the board and to the Planning Commission. So because these are uses by right and no actions are made unless there's a limited occasion that there needs to be something resolved with the site plan, The proposal is to replace that formal presentation with information in the packets. That would include the general overview of the project, the drawings, the landscape plan, the elevations, and the site plan. So the intention is to streamline the review process and also save the applicants some time and money, eliminating the need for them to attend meetings such as tonight, and also free up the agendas to allow for more discussion on topics which require formal board action. We also plan to allow the site plan information to be provided to the boards and commission, the board and commission, earlier in the process, and again, just to attempt to streamline the review process. So the recommendation, I'm just showing you the code language. We change out the code for section 17920 as follows, and replacing those two sections with the terminology of having the site plan information and applicable drawings in the packets. And again, in 17830, where it's the administrative site plan, we add that language to that section as well, as underlined on the bottom here. There is a tweak in some of the language in 17920 as well that we decided when we were doing this, we'd change, clarify or reconcilable differences arise to dispute arises, and then put a notice of dispute to be sent to the applicant if that does occur. Last time we met, we talked about how the planning commission or town board members will convey the comments, and in response to those comments, the planning department would include revised submittals in future packets. And out of that discussion, the planning department put together a policy paper that was included in your packet. It has more detail on what would be expected and the timing of the conveyed site plan materials. Those would be in the meeting packets. We'd get those to the packets within a couple weeks of the site plan submittal after development review board scheduled it for review. If there's no town board or planning commission comments, the site plan will proceed. If the town board or planning commission has comments, members will provide any comments on the site plan materials to the director of planning within 2 weeks of receiving the materials, either by email or at the regular meeting. Director of planning will disseminate the comments and to the appropriate staff member and the town manager, and then the staff will work with the applicant to or address those comments. After the deadline for the review for both bodies, we will consolidate all the comments. You had mentioned before that you wanted to see those comments, and then we would consolidate them and include them in the packet as well. And then eventually, usually it takes a little more than couple weeks, it's depending on the applicant, to get changes or modifications done to the site plan, but when they do resubmit, we will include those in the packets with a summary of what was changed and a reminder of what those comments were in the beginning. As well, we put a process for remedying disputes. That's one thing that we had changed in the language here about irreconcilable differences arise. It's now dispute arises. If such a dispute does arise, we'll revert back to the current way that we do it. We will bring the site plan to the planning commission and to the town board with that discussion on what that dispute is and what the recommendations are.
And I would just add really quickly that if on page 99 of your packet, we do have, and Melissa just covered that, but it's basically the process we'll follow. I know at the last meeting, the board had some really specific questions of how will this work and how that works. So this is basically our internal, process that Melissa and Scott put together, and we've met and gone over it. So I just wanted the board to feel comfortable to read through that and say, I just don't want you to feel like you're walking away from some input, but so if you have any questions on that, it's pretty detailed of how we'll handle that.
Okay.
And just a reminder that on the July 18th Planning Commission meeting, they recommended approval as outlined and subject to any town board direction, but at the July 23rd meeting, the town board approved the item as presented and conducted the first reading of that ordinance.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Berry? Seeing none, this is second reading. Is there anybody this evening who wanted to step forward to address the board on this agenda item? Okay. Seeing none as well, then I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 2018-1565.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Mr. Bennett approving ordinance 2018-1565. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the ordinance passes unanimously. Moving on to item 4, ordinance number 2018-1566. An ordinance rezoning Ptarmigan Business Park PUD, the second filing, Tract A. Tom Muth, Windsor Investments LTD, the applicant. John Sweet, TST Consulting Engineers, is the applicant's representative. Again, this is second reading. It will take a supermajority and is quasi-judicial. Mr. Hornbeck.
Thank you. So this second reading of the rezoning has been reviewed in accordance with Article 5, Chapter 16. The site, again, is less than a third of an acre. It's essentially a remnant parcel from a previous rezoning approved by town board and has come up because of the proposed realignment of Westgate Drive. It would essentially be a little peninsula of zoning which doesn't match the surrounding RMU zoning. The application is in conformance with the comprehensive plan, and notification was done in accordance with the municipal code. At their July 18th meeting, the Planning Commission forwarded to Town Board a recommendation of approval. Town Board approved first reading on July 23rd, 2018. Staff requests the following be entered into the record: the application and supplemental materials, staff memo and supporting documents, all testimony received, and the recommendation. And that concludes my presentation.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hornbeck on this ordinance? Okay, seeing none, and as this also is second reading, is there anybody who wished to address the board on this particular agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 2018-1567.
Second.
Motion on the floor for Mr. Bennett with a second for Mr. Baker approving ordinance 2018-1566. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. 1566.
He said 67, you said
Yeah,
66.
Okay. And the ordinance passes unanimously. Moving on to item 5, ordinance number 2018-1567. An ordinance rezoning Valley Center subdivision, lots A and B. Allen High Street, AgriFab Colorado LLC, the applicant. Mike Maurer Olson Associates, the applicant's representative. Again, second reading. It will take a supermajority and quasi-judicial. Mr. Hornbeck.
This rezoning also has been reviewed in accordance with Article 5, Chapter 16 of the Municipal Code. The site is located north of Eastman Park Drive and to the east of State Highway 257. The site is currently zoned general commercial. And as you may recall, there was a previous rezoning request for this property, as mentioned on first reading. That was not approved by Town Board. A conceptual site plan which realigns the garage doors for the proposed development site has been submitted, and the neighboring business owners have expressed support for this rezone. The proposal is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The notification was done in accordance with the municipal code. And at their July 18th, 2018 meeting, the Planning Commission forwarded to Town Board a recommendation of approval. Town Board approved first reading on July 23rd, 2018. Staff requests the following be entered into the record: application and supplemental materials, staff memo and supporting documents, all testimony received, and the recommendation. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Hornbeck on this particular agenda item? Okay, seeing none, and this is second reading. Is there anybody who wished to address the board on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I motion that we pass or approve ordinance number 2018-1567 as written.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Wilson with a second from Mr. Bennett, approving ordinance 2018-1567. All in favor, vote yes. Opposed, no. And the ordinance passes unanimously. Moving on to item 6, ordinance number 2018-1569. An ordinance amending section 16-6-90 of the Windsor Municipal Code regarding proposed minor variance process. Again, second reading will require a supermajority and legislative action. Ms. Malone.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Board. There have been no changes from the first reading. Again, this ordinance would allow the planning director to make administrative modifications when there are items that occur, such as errors in the field or minor deviations that must occur, versus going through all minor modifications to the town's Board of Adjustment, which is currently the process. Again, we've made no changes from what you saw last time, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions on this agenda item? Seeing none, again, second reading. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board on this particular agenda item? Seeing none, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'd move for approval of ordinance 2018-1569.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Dr. Jones with a second from Mr. Rennemeyer, approving ordinance 2018-1569. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the ordinance passes unanimously. Moving on to item 7, resolution number 2018-76. A resolution approving and adopting an intergovernmental agreement between and among the Town of Windsor, the City of Loveland, and the County of Larimer with respect to the Fairgrounds Avenue corridor. Legislative action. Ms. Berry will give presentation.
Thank you. So again, this is the intergovernmental agreement for Fairgrounds Avenue, for the Fairgrounds Avenue right-of-way master plan. This is an intergovernmental agreement between or among Town of Windsor, City of Loveland, and Larimer County. The purpose is to coordinate the planning of Fairgrounds Avenue by all parties so that as it develops over time, half being on Loveland's side and half being on Windsor's side, that it looks like a cohesive planned area. This helps promote public health, safety, and welfare by addressing various aspects within the corridor, including access points, pedestrian crossings, street standards, and even aesthetics. So the corridor you're familiar with, this particular master plan will be between County Road 30 to the north and then to Crossroads Boulevard to the south. As you know, the Loveland, the boundary between Loveland and Windsor pretty much follows that right away, or Fairgrounds Avenue. There are little deviations, but for the most part does. Larimer County is included in this agreement because they are they have a Larimer County Fairgrounds there, and it's a pretty big traffic generator and also land use in the area. So they were brought in for that. A little background, in early 2017, Loveland and Windsor were starting to get development proposals along the corridor. This includes the Brands, which is being developed on both sides of the street. The ranch was discussing new ideas for their site plan, including some potential realignments for Arena Circle. The Poudre School District had an elementary school being planned out there, and there was also discussion about the Windsor Highland Metropolitan District expanding. So all these were going on, so Loveland staff and Windsor staff, both the planning and engineering, met a few times to discuss this and how they could actually make this area develop as a more cohesive design, and looks like it is one place instead of two different jurisdictions. After that, or at those meetings, they decided to expand this access plan that they have for the corridor and turn it into a full formal agreement and a right-of-way master plan. There was stakeholder outreach with all the property owners in the area and their representatives, got some ideas from them. The staff came back and worked with the consultant to do some concepts for the area, street cross-sections, median design, landscape design, and other streetscape elements. We went back to the stakeholders after that and showed the stakeholders what we were planning, and in general, they were in general support of the, or pretty much in support of the concepts. In January of this year, for some of you that was on the board then, we had a joint meeting with the Windsor Town Board and also with the Loveland City Council. We showed what we were planning and the concepts that we had. After that, we got the go-ahead to flesh out the IGA agreement, and that's been going on for a few months. And now we're here to get the adoption. So I'll just go through the plan a little bit with you. Again, it's based on the access control plan that tells us where the access points for future drives are going to be located, what kind of turn radius are expected, where the signalized intersections are. We went ahead and coordinated the street standards among the two communities, and also went ahead and selected a landscape and streetscape palette that will be used for all the communities, or all the properties when they develop. So this is an example of what some of the intersection will be. It highlights where okay, so this is north on this map. It's County Road 30, crossroads down here. This is the ranch. Tells us where the signalized intersections will be at certain spacings and where they would be located, and also describes that turning movements that are allowed. This is a typical cross-section design. Loveland and Windsor do have slightly different standards, so we've come to agreements on what we would use for the median curbs here, and then also bike lane widths. One thing that will stay a little different is that on the Loveland side will be a 6-foot sidewalk. On our Windsor side, there's a 10-foot trail. That's part of our Trails Master Plan. We also described the details for the median, the colors, the kind of textures that will go on it, and also selected a plant list for the landscaping for the median area. And here's that plant list here. And we also went and were discussing about coordinating the street lights and the street furniture along the corridor. This is a more illustrative view of that access plan that was just a CAD drawing of what was expected. It includes the palette, the landscape palette, the median treatment, and the intersection, what can be expected for the intersection, so it's more illustrative plan. And then we went ahead and did that with the whole corridor from Crossroads all the way up to 30. This is just one example page of it, and this may become useful as developers start developing, that we can say this is our plan and this is what we expect to go on. That will happen here. So the IGA basically puts this all on paper. Talks about the access, cross-sections, meaning everything I just went through. It also talks about how that's going to be maintained, what will happen if any of the arena circle gets realigned, what would happen to the existing entries into the ranch versus where the signalized intersections would go. It also talks about road naming, trying to coordinate the road names on both sides of the streets so that we have some kind of cohesiveness there instead of two different named streets. As a referral system, we already have a referral system right now for site plans, but this expands it to more regional plans like drainage plans or transit plans, something that kind of affects both parties in this area. Those exhibits to the IGA are what you've just seen, the master plan, the sections of palette and the pendant lighting. And again, parties involved, Town of Windsor, we're seeing it tonight. City of Loveland is seeing it next week. They were going to see it a little earlier, but we finally got Larimer County, heard back from them, and they're in support of it, so we're holding off a little bit for both of us to review this. That's why we're doing this now instead of then. That date's still to be determined, but we've got pretty much a go-ahead with the attorney, and the county manager is aware of it, and we've got the public works director that's reviewed it, as well as the ranch, so that's going pretty strong. So this is complies with the comprehensive plan. That comprehensive plan suggests that we work cooperatively with the adjacent municipalities to coordinate future land use and development through intergovernmental agreements. It also talks about the Fairgrounds Entertainment District and how that's an attraction to the area, and we want to see that it's something that that we can be proud of. So the recommendation is for the town board to approve resolution number 2018-76 to approve and adopt the intergovernmental agreement adopting Fairgrounds Avenue right-of-way plan as presented. And that's the conclusion. I do have the rest of the master plan here if you want to see it, but that is it for now. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Are there any questions? Mr. Baker?
I have a comment. I want to thank everyone that's worked on this. I think it's a really important project because there's not a lot of development out there yet, and also there's no natural buffer. We talked about buffers at our retreat, and there's no buffer out there. So I think at least we'll have some nice-looking development and some cohesiveness. I had a question on County Road 30. There's no signal currently, and there's talk of a signal. Do you know what kind? Is that going to be a full, or is it only going to be pedestrian?
After talking we just went around a couple of times with the engineering, and the last review is that it will be a signalized intersection in the future. But there is also allowance for a hawk signal or a pedestrian signal if that needed to be before the actual intersection goes in. It depends on the timing of the school district and other development in the area. But it is planned to be a signalized intersection.
Okay. And regarding Arena Circle realignment, is there concern that all that traffic that would potentially just not knowing where to go just start falling into the neighborhoods right there? Right now, they're forced to go left or right. This will allow them to go straight into a neighborhood if they don't know where they're going or they want to try to avoid traffic. Is there any concern from staff on that?
I don't think there's concern. I think signage will help a lot with that. The two that will happen is the alignment. This is kind of hard to see, but the current Arena Circle is here, and then both on the north end and on the south end they'll be realigned, and that's where the intersections will be. The two existing accesses will become limited service access. So there will be signals at the two that are going toward Crooked Stick, and then it will also align with Steeplechase. So I think signage will help to help people to get around, but no, we did not have too much concern that they'll just drive straight into the residential areas, I should say.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, Dr. Jones?
Yeah, I think it's a great plan. How's it going to happen? Are the jurisdictions front-ending the development of this and then collect impact fees as development occurs next to it, or
It would happen as development occurs. It will be part of the development to put in the infrastructure as shown and the elements. There are a few areas that probably will have to be retrofitted. There are some street lights that we have existing. There's some medians that will be updated with this, but for the majority of it will be from the property owners and their development, and then maintenance with the Metro District out there.
So it'll be kind of piecemeal as you go. It won't be all installed at one time.
It will be piecemeal.
Yeah.
There could be the opportunity in the future if the communities want to propose a plan to upfront it, but at this time, it's still developer driven.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay. Anything else from our attorney or town manager?
From me, I can't help myself. This agreement has taken a lot of revision, and with a lot of parties that arrived at different times. Melissa has stayed on this for months and months and has kept bringing me these projects to rewrite it and send it back. And so this really is, there's been a lot of persistence on this agreement. I think it's a good agreement as far as it goes, and the stakeholder outreach was really important to get all those folks lined up. So as you mentioned, Dr. Jones, as development occurs, they know what the participants in this agreement are expecting. So I'm proud of this agreement just because of the amount of work it's taken to get it to this point.
And the other parties are in agreement with what we have to date, as far as we know?
That's correct. County was the last to issue its approval, but has since done that. So that's why this actually was on the agenda for a couple of weeks ago. We needed to pull it to make sure the county attorney's office was good with it. And since that time, we've gotten it all squared away.
Okay. Well, then I would seek a motion for Resolution 2018-76.
Madam Mayor, I will move for the approval of resolution number 2018-76.
Second.
Motion on the floor for Mr. Kozlowski with a second for Mr. Baker approving Resolution 2018-76. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the resolution passes unanimously. Moving on to item 8, resolution number 2018-79. A resolution authorizing the town's private activity bond allocation to the Housing Authority of the Town of Windsor. Legislative action, Ms. Malone will give presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Board. In 2015, the town became an eligible participant in the Department of Local Affairs private activity bonds issuance. How this works is that the Department of Local Affairs will issue private activity bonds for a project to help encourage private investment in a project that benefits the community. This fund has been allocated to the Windsor Housing Authority in 2015 and 2016, and those bonds went towards the financing of the Windsor Meadows apartments, the workforce housing. This year, the amount allocated to the town is $1.29 million, and the proposal is that be issued to the Windsor Housing Authority for their next project, which is a affordable senior housing proposal. Last year, we did not have an eligible project. Some of the criteria for a project, there must be a site, there must be some plans in place, and so last year we did not have anything that would be eligible. This year, Windsor Housing Authority has a contract on a site. They have submitted for a master plan amendment, and they have the appropriate zoning. So therefore, we're recommending that this allocation go to the Windsor Housing Authority. We also have members of Windsor Housing Authority here.
Yes. Did the members of the Windsor Housing Authority wish to say anything?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Are there any questions then on this item?
I guess the only one I'd have is if the thought somehow the Housing Authority defaulted on these bonds, it doesn't affect our standing at all, does it? As far as our bonding capacity or anything like that?
No, not to my knowledge. So these funds are based solely on the population of the town. And as far as, I'm not exactly sure what would happen if they were to default, but.
Yeah, well, and I can kind of jump in. So this is just a state allocation of basically tax exempt bonds that we get assigned to the town. So it's not really a bond, it's just a tax exempt status that we're signing over. So it's, we're not in any way financially liable to this. This would still be up to the district to bond out, and we're not giving the good name or credit of the town to them. We're just letting them take this tax credit.
Right, and it's issued directly from DOLA to Windsor Housing Authority.
Okay, Mr.
Thank you.
Slum?
Yeah, I guess related question, and I'll take a step back from that. Just trying to understand how these bonds would be repaid. What's the revenue stream that is really going to meet the debt service?
That's
Rent.
Rent? That would be my speculation. But
Yes.
I don't know the details of that.
Please come forward. Just state your name and address for the record.
So I'm Jeff Fenice, and I'm actually from the Loveland Housing Authority. We work in partnership with the Windsor Housing Authority and Carlin, of course. And so when these bonds are issued, they're actually used to fund the 4% tax credits, and that's where the funds come back. There's private investors. We frequently work with somebody like Wells Fargo that buys these tax credits after they're allocated. and that's what funds the bonds.
Well, I think what he's asking though is like, how is the housing authority gonna pay the bonds off? If you're issuing bonds, is it rent you're collecting, or how do they?
It's through that private investment. They fund the bonds, and there isn't a repayment back.
So it's repaid in a lump sum,
Yes.
more or less from the cash value,
From
if
the,
you will, of
correct.
the tax credit.
That's correct.
With the tax code change, they probably lost a little value.
That's exactly right.
Okay,
A lot of value.
yeah, thank you.
Any additional questions? Well, I'm happy
Thank you.
to, and eager to support this resolution. It's something that after we did complete the workforce housing, we asked the Windsor Housing Authority to make their next project senior housing. And this is the answer to that prayer and to many of our seniors who are eagerly awaiting this next phase to take place in Windsor. So with that, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2018-79.
Second?
Motion on the floor for Mr. Rennemeyer with a second for Mr. Bennett approving resolution 2018-79. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And it passes unanimously. Moving on to item D, communications. Communications from our town attorney.
The only thing I have is a reminder that we have an executive session tonight that really combines two identical purposes, but it's two separate topics. That's all I've got.
So when we take a motion, does somebody read both of the back to back?
No,
Or-
Mr. Rennemeyer and I have talked about this, and what he will be asking is a motion to convene a combined executive session to address the purposes that are set forth in the agenda.
Okay. Communications from town staff. Anything further, Mr. Balstead? Okay, Ms. Hoadley? Ms. Young? Chief?
Only because he's got a gun.
And if you
Yeah.
aren't gonna do this, you might wanna, or do you have any kind of feedback about National Night Out? Or is that what you were gonna say?
Yeah, National Night. I just want to thank the board for participating in National Night Out on the 7th. I was not in town. Thank you for the hat. Yeah, thank you,
Okay, there we
gentlemen.
go. Let's all wear
I can
it.
still get sunburned out of that.
I spent the day with my wife for her 36th anniversary, so I was not in town. So unfortunately, Mr. Lucas's Pirates put a whooping on the Rockies that day, so, but we'll get to that later. But
Down in the back, would you keep
we had
that
lots
back?
of comments in reference to National Night Out, so they were very happy for the turnout, and we had I think 23 different block parties, so it was a very successful night. So again, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lucas, anything further? Okay. Communications from town manager.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, communications from town board members. Okay, with that, I will move on to item E in our executive session.
Madam Mayor, I move that we move into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402, subsection 4, subsection E, subsection I, for the combined purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators with respect for certain economic development incentives.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to go into executive session. Is there a second? And we have a second. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. Okay, and we will move into executive session in about 5 minutes.